Your dog is standing at the window watching you back out of the driveway. You tell yourself it's fine, that they'll curl up on the couch and sleep until you get home. Maybe you've convinced yourself they don't really understand time, that 5 minutes and 5 hours feel the same to them. Both of these assumptions feel comforting. Neither is what the research shows is actually happening. What's taking place in your dog's brain during those moments and in the hours that follow looks nothing like the peaceful nap you're imagining. Number 1. The cortisol spike you can't see. In 2015, researchers at the University of Lincoln tested cortisol levels in 30 dogs at multiple points during owner absence. What they found was specific and unsettling. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, spiked within the first 3 minutes of separation, not after an hour of being alone. Not when the dog realized you weren't coming back soon. Within 180 seconds of the door closing, a follow-up study at Sweden's Linköping University in 2017 added a crucial detail. They used continuous monitoring and discovered that 73% of dogs showed elevated cortisol that persisted for the entire absence period. Even when owners were gone for just 30 minutes, the dogs weren't adjusting or calming down. They were maintaining a sustained stress response the entire time. What makes this harder is the mechanism. Dogs lack the prefrontal cortex development that allows humans to rationalize temporary absence. When you leave, their brain doesn't process, "they'll be back later." It processes, "the most important being in my world has disappeared." Each departure, neurologically, feels like the first time. The implication is uncomfortable but clear. Every time you leave, even for something routine, your dog's body floods with stress hormones and stays in that state until you return. That's not separation anxiety in the clinical sense. That's just Tuesday. Number 2. The attention economy you control. Researchers at Oregon State University conducted a study in 2017 that restructured how we should think about quality time. They gave 38 dogs a choice between food, toys, praise, and petting. The dogs chose petting and praise over food 61% of the time. When the researchers isolated just the dogs who lived in homes where owners were gone more than 8 hours daily, that percentage jumped to 79%. What the dogs were selecting for wasn't just touch. It was eye contact and verbal attention. A 2019 study at Eötvös Loránd University in Hungary used eye tracking technology and found that dogs maintain eye contact with their owners an average of 52 seconds during a 2-minute interaction when they haven't seen them all day, compared to 11 seconds during the same interaction when the owner has been home. The biological driver is oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It releases in both you and your dog during eye contact, creating a feedback loop. But here's the problem most people miss. You come home after a long day, and your dog is desperate for that oxytocin hit, for the eye contact that their brain has been waiting hours to receive. You're on your phone, making dinner, dealing with mail, putting away your bag. The research from Azabu University in Japan in 2015 showed that owners make sustained eye contact with their dogs for an average of 2.4 minutes per day. Not per interaction, per day total. Your dog spent 8 hours in a sustained stress state waiting for you, and you're giving them 144 seconds of the neurochemical connection their brain is built to need. The math doesn't work. Number 3. The invisible pain you're rewarding. When your dog limps after playing, you comfort them. When they yelp, you investigate. But dogs are den animals, and den animals have spent 30,000 years of evolution learning to hide pain until it becomes impossible to conceal. A 2014 study at North Carolina State University, College of Veterinary Medicine, evaluated 70 dogs with confirmed osteoarthritis. They asked owners to rate their dog's pain level before treatment, then tracked after pain management intervention. Owners were shocked by the change in behavior. 64% said they hadn't realized their dog was in pain before treatment, even though radiographs showed severe joint degeneration. The dogs had been masking chronic pain so effectively that the people who lived with them every day couldn't detect it. A follow-up analysis at the University of Pennsylvania in 2018 found something worse. In 81% of cases where dogs showed subtle pain signals, things like sitting down more quickly than usual, hesitating before stairs, or shifting weight when standing, owners interpreted those behaviors as slowing down with age or being lazy and reduced exercise. Reducing exercise made the pain worse. The mechanism is evolutionary. Wild canids who showed obvious pain became targets. Domestic dogs still carry that genetic instruction. They hide discomfort until the pain becomes so severe that hiding it is impossible. By the time you see limping, the problem has often been progressing for months. What this means practically is difficult. The subtle cues exist. A dog who used to jump on the couch and now uses the stairs. A dog who takes an extra second to stand up. A dog who stops halfway through a walk when they never used to. Those aren't personality quirks. Those are pain signals you're missing. And when you miss them, you're unintentionally rewarding your dog for suffering in silence, because they learn that hiding it means life continues normally. Number 4. The intermittent reinforcement trap. In 2012, behavioral researchers at the University of Bristol studied what they called inconsistent response patterns in 124 dog owner pairs. They tracked how owners responded to the same behavior, things like jumping up, barking for attention, or begging at the table, across multiple. What they found was that owners were consistent in their response only 31% of the time. The rest of the time, the same behavior got different reactions depending on the owner's mood, stress level. Sometimes the jumping was ignored. Sometimes it was rewarded with attention. Sometimes it was corrected. To your dog's brain, this creates the most powerful reinforcement schedule known to behavioral psychology. It's called a variable ratio schedule, and it's the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. When a behavior sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, with no predictable pattern, the behavior becomes incredibly resistant to extinction. Your dog learns to keep trying, because eventually, statistically, it will work. A 2016 study at the University of Copenhagen demonstrated this with attention-seeking barking. Dogs whose owners responded inconsistently barked 4.7 times longer on average than dogs whose owners never responded. The inconsistent response was worse than always giving in. Here's what makes this break your dog's heart in a specific way. Dogs are trying to learn the rules of your household. They're genuinely attempting to figure out what makes you happy, what gets them what they need, and how to behave correctly. When the rules change based on factors they can't perceive, your stress level or your day at work, they're not being stubborn. They're confused. And confusion in a social animal that depends entirely on you for survival creates chronic anxiety. You're not training your dog when you're inconsistent. You're teaching them that the world is unpredictable and that their actions have random consequences. Number 5. The developmental windows you're missing. Puppies have what neurologists call critical socialization periods, specific windows when the brain is maximally plastic and capable of forming neural pathways that will shape behavior for life. Research from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine in 2011 mapped these windows with precision. The primary socialization period runs from 3 to 14 weeks. During this time, a puppy's amygdala, the fear center of the brain, is developing its baseline calibration for what is safe and what is threatening. A 2018 study at the University of Bern in Switzerland followed 200 puppies through adulthood. The puppies who were exposed to fewer than 10 different people, 5 different environments, and 3 different types of flooring during the 3 to 14-week window showed a 68% higher rate of fear-based aggression at 2 years old, compared to puppies with broader socialization. The window isn't symbolic. At 14 weeks, the brain's plasticity for this type of learning drops dramatically. It doesn't close completely, but the same learning that takes 1 exposure at 8 weeks might take 50 exposures at 20 weeks. Most puppy buyers bring their dog home at 8 weeks and keep them isolated until vaccinations are complete at 16 weeks, waiting for the all clear from the vet. Those 8 weeks are the entire critical period. By the time the puppy is safe to socialize, what this means is you're making a choice. You can protect your puppy from a small statistical risk of disease during the period when their brain is built to learn that the world is safe. Or you can protect them from a much larger risk of lifelong behavioral problems. The research from the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior states this directly. The risk of a dog developing serious behavioral issues from inadequate socialization is far greater than the risk of disease from controlled socialization before vaccination is complete. Most people choose wrong because the disease risk feels concrete and the behavioral risk feels theoretical. But a dog who spends their entire life afraid of strangers, other dogs, or new environments isn't theoretical. That's a broken quality of life caused by a preventable developmental failure. Number 6. The punishment you think is training. When your dog does something wrong and you scold them after the fact, you believe you're teaching them not to repeat the behavior. A 2009 study at the University of Florida tested this directly. Researchers had owners scold dogs for behaviors the dogs had done minutes earlier. Things like getting into the trash or chewing furniture. They measured cortisol and used behavioral coding to assess the dog's responses. The dogs showed submission signals: lowered body posture, averted gaze, the look owners call guilty. But when researchers tested whether the dogs were less likely to repeat the behavior after being scolded, there was zero correlation. The scolding didn't reduce the behavior. What it did do was increase cortisol and create anxiety around the owner's return. The mechanism is temporal association. Dogs can link cause and effect within about 1.3 seconds. That's the window. If you don't catch them in the act within that time frame, their brain cannot connect your anger to the behavior. What they learn instead is that sometimes when you come home, you're angry. They don't know why. The guilty look isn't guilt. It's appeasement behavior, triggered by your body language and tone. A 2018 study at Barnard College proved this by having owners scold dogs when the dogs had done nothing wrong. The dogs showed the same guilty body language. They were responding to the owner's affect. What this creates is learned helplessness. Your dog can't figure out the pattern because there isn't one they can perceive. They just know that sometimes you're angry and they don't know how to prevent it. Over time, this breaks down trust. The dog who used to greet you enthusiastically at the door starts hanging back, waiting to assess your mood. That hesitation isn't respect. It's fear of unpredictable punishment. Number 7. The boredom that looks like misbehavior. In 2013, researchers at the University of Bristol conducted cognitive testing on 72 dogs and correlated the results with. They found that dogs who scored higher on problem-solving tasks, the dogs with more active, complex brains, were 2.3 times more likely to have. The smarter the dog, the worse the behavior. A follow-up study at Emory University in 2016 used fMRI to scan dogs' brains during periods. What they found was that working breeds and high-drive dogs showed increased activity in the caudate nucleus, the part of the brain associated with seeking and reward, even when lying still. Their brains were searching for problems to solve. And when none were available, the seeking behavior continued without outlet. Behaviorists have a term for this: stereotypy. It's repetitive behavior that serves no function. Things like pacing, tail chasing, excessive licking. It's what happens when a brain built for complex work. Most people respond to these behaviors with more physical exercise. They run the dog harder, throw the ball more times, extend the walk. But a 2017 study at Lincoln University showed that physical exercise alone reduced stereotypy behaviors when researchers added cognitive enrichment, things like puzzle feeders, scent work, and training sessions. The reduction jumped. The dog doesn't just need to be tired. The dog needs when you're not providing that, your dog isn't misbehaving out of. They're displaying the canine equivalent of going stir-crazy in solitary confinement. The destructive chewing, the barking at nothing, the inability to settle. Those aren't training problems. Those are symptoms of a brain that's starving for cognitive engagement and doesn't have the language to tell you. Number 8. The goodbye you never got to say. The average lifespan of a dog in the United States is 10 to 13 years, depending on size. A 2020 study at Colorado State University's Flint Animal Cancer Center found that 42% of dogs over the age of 10 will die of cancer. Another 28% will die of organ failure, kidney or heart disease. These are not sudden deaths. These are gradual declines where the question of euthanasia becomes unavoidable. The research from the University of Tennessee College of Veterinary Medicine in 2019 interviewed 400 owners who had euthanized a pet in the previous year. They asked one specific question: do you wish you had made the decision earlier? 78% said yes. When asked why they waited, the top response was, "I wanted more time," and "I didn't want to give up on them." The veterinary community has a quality of life scale developed by Dr. Alice Villalobos. It measures 7 factors: pain, hunger, hydration, happiness, mobility, and the scale is designed to be used by owners at home. A 2021 study at Cornell found that only 11% of dog owners were aware the scale existed. And among those who were aware, most didn't use it until the dog was. The gap between when euthanasia is medically indicated and when owners choose it averages 3 to 6 weeks. That's 3 to 6 weeks where your dog is existing in a state you wouldn't tolerate for yourself. They're in pain that medication can no longer control. Or they're too weak to walk outside to urinate. Or they've stopped eating because their body is shutting down. Dogs can't tell you when they're ready. They don't have the concept. What they have is a fundamental trust that you will not let them suffer. And the science on this is not ambiguous. Waiting until the dog is in crisis, until they can't stand or they're gasping for air, is the most loving thing you can do is make the decision one day too early. If you're carrying guilt about this, if you're reading this and thinking about a dog you've already lost, the research offers. A 2018 study at the University of Hawaii surveyed 1,100 people who had euthanized pets and asked them to. The overwhelming majority said they wished they had been braver sooner. Not that they had made the wrong choice, but that they had let their dogs suffer longer than necessary because your dog's final gift to you is that they will stay as long as you ask them to. Don't ask them to stay too long. Number 9. What the science asks of you. Dogs have been living alongside humans for at least 15,000 years. In that time, we've shaped them into animals that are neurologically dependent on us in ways no other. They read our facial expressions better than chimpanzees. They follow our eye gaze like human infants. Their brains release oxytocin when they look at us, the same hormone that bonds mothers to babies. We created them to need us. And now they're here, in your home, with a lifespan a fraction of yours, trying to figure out how to live in a world where every rule is made by someone. The research across all of these areas points to the same truth. Most of what breaks your dog's heart isn't dramatic. It's not abuse or neglect in the legal sense. It's the small, repeated failures of translation. It's leaving them in a stress state because you don't realize they can't rationalize time. It's giving them inconsistent rules because you're tired. It's missing their pain signals because they've evolved to hide them. It's letting their brains starve because you thought a long walk was enough. The next time your dog watches you leave, here's what's actually happening. Their cortisol is spiking, their prefrontal cortex can't rationalize your return, and their brain is flooding with the. When you come home and scroll your phone instead of making eye contact, you're withholding the oxytocin connection their entire day. When you scold them for something they did an hour ago, you're creating anxiety they can't. When you ignore the subtle limp or the hesitation on stairs, you're allowing them to suffer because their evolutionary programming hides it well. And when the time comes, when their quality of life has eroded to the point where the kindest thing is to let them go, one day too early is more loving than 1 hour too late. You can't give your dog more years, but you can give them better days. Make eye contact. Be consistent. Learn their pain signals. Tire their brain, not just their body. And when the end comes, be braver than you feel. If this changed how you see your dog, subscribe so you don't miss what else the research reveals. And tell me in the comments which of these hit hardest. The science is here to help you do better. Use it.